Hello, beautiful cosmic family. We are live once again for the third panel of today, which is Interdimensional and ET Experiencers panel, which we'll start with in a moment here. Alan Steinfeld is going to be the host for this panel, and he will introduce all the individuals on it. But what I wanted to do, I'm just going to take a look, make sure the stream is coming through really quick. Yes, we are. All right. So what I wanted to do is just share my screen here and do a poem, two poems connected here. This one was inspired by, Dante's Inferno, and then also Buddhist philosophy and the dark night of the soul. So the whole concept of that we go through these hells, like not a literal hell as in like a place with fire and brimstones where we're being punished, but the hells of the lower densities, right? And I don't feel there is that. I feel kind of like we can create our own hell on this planet here. So this is a ballad to the nine hells. And then we're going to go into the sixth sun, and then we should start the panel. Okay, the nine hells. Enter the maze, the abyss, where misery sits, the inferno that is too hot to sit, yet alone take a stand. This is the land that you will forever be in. Doesn't really exist in the realm of men and women. Souls, they come down to explore this world. You are renowned in the depths of this place where the gods send humans who waste their life, disgrace their time on this 3D line. Down we fall to the underworld. But my question is, can we fall anymore? We were angels who dropped, tripped, and fell into earth. We are volunteers, not celestial beings who were cursed. What is the worst thing that can happen with so much chaos and lyricists rapping, expressing themselves through flows? Until you enter the first hell entitled Limbo, where the unbaptized and pagans go. Well, I guess I'll enter this realm because I know there was once more than one. Until humanity decided to worship the sun, many gods with a lowercase g, their words were empty, but providing technology that has been lost in time until Revelations transforms the central mind. Enter the realm of lust, stuck, no balance. Patriarchy has done its damage, over-sexualizing, controlling minds, but I manage to break free. Every now and then, until they catch up with me, science, entertainment, and the media we can't trust. This fiending, can we adjust from a millennia of rust, wipe off the dust as we raise our cups to the highest of levels? We had various forms of devils. Personified energy combined with heavy metals will shift your brain as we enter the next two planes of existence. Gluttony and greeds are hells that are persistent. I will remove all the items from my wish list. To this personal hell I'm resistant. Many are coexisting with demons that are misfits as we shift our intentions and belief systems around what is our mission. On this third planet, we are stranded. One day this illusion will straight up vanish. The greed is the fourth cycle in this inferno, where humans fight for money and valuables. The Iron Presence knows the grand design is intellectual. Anger can consume you. Enter the tomb. Your tombstone will join the other souls that could not move on or past grudges that last. Multiple lifetimes running too fast, foot on the gas, exploding and erupting, spreading lava all over the place. Move on to the circle of heresy where the heretics spend eternity, dubbed to be blasphemy, ashes, and a scorching fire. Those here have been wired not to believe what is commonly accepted and retire organized religion with an alternative vision of a personal hell that will diminish. This life is finished, made in his image, but dismissed by God. Into the seventh and eighth, encompassed with violence and fraud. If you feel these flows, give your head a nod. Ground into the earth with a copper rod. Conscious awareness will never be outlawed. I applaud the ways you move through this maze. At the end, seeing the light of day, climbing up the hierarchy into the ninth hell of treachery, the last aspect of duality needed before the extrasensory gifts come online. DNA strands activate and the vibration inside. Each one of us will rise as life moves from struggle to joy and fun. And as we enter the sixth sun, the sixth sun has risen. We're now in the sixth world. spread for years by our human peers. The sixth sun has risen. We're now in the sixth world, spread for years by our human peers. The sixth sun has risen. We're now in the sixth world, passed down for years by our human peers through oral tradition. Information about our collective mission, what a new reality would envision, spoken through Toltec and Aztec wisdom. We discuss and perceive larger cycles of time than even the Maya depicted. It was known we're in a transition that started in 1991. As we move from the fifth to the sixth sun, what are we waiting for? What have we waited for? These wars will stop. The sunspots increase in diameter and frequency as the frequency of this planetary body shifts and changes. So does the neural networks within our brains, kids, adults, animals, family. We've been blinded, you see, to the vibratory energy that our universe breathes. In the last of the 9 hells, exiting the solar plexus, humans unable to think for themselves. We're at a nexus point. A decision shall anoint. The sun god I point out is the Son of God that resurrects and reflects over water, including the second ocean known as space, where the cosmic rays during this transitory phase will encase and wash over the solar system. And in the skies, we may see both stars become one as we enter the sixth sun. The sixth sun has risen. We're now in the sixth world, spread for years by our human peers. The sixth sun has risen. We are now in the sixth world, spread for years by our human peers. To everybody who's tuning in right now, let's all take some breaths together. Deep breath in. Exhale.
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
well, the 9 hells came about from the Mayan calendar when they predicted the invasion of the Spanish, of the European, to the Yucatan, to Mexico, and that began 9 cycles of 52 years. So Jose Aguirre has planned out, so he called it 9 cycles of hell. The 9 hells were from 1519 to 1987, although he may have been off a few years, and that was 52 years. And then in 1987 was the beginning, he felt, of this new time, and then 2012, and then we just had this big shift in 2020. So this is really the beginning of a new, I would say, Aquarian age that we're coming into. So the 9th hells hopefully are behind us. So thank you, Neil.
Right, thank you. And then what's after the 9th hell? Is the sixth sun? The next?
Well, yeah, they relate. The 9th hell was a kind of like transition. I mean, it was a kind of ending of one time. And the sixth sun is, according to Sergio Magana, one of the Mayan keepers of knowledge, this is the age of the sixth sun. This is the age of less material, aware and more about energy than matter. It's a time of Nagual versus the tonal. The Nagual is the mystery, the time of being in the mystery instead of being detached from the mystery.
Right. All right, guys. So we're going to get into the panel in a moment here, and I'm just bringing on all the panelists. And Brendon, Geraldine, I'm sending you as panelists, but you guys aren't accepting. So if you could just click yes.
Are you going to do the sixth sun, Neil?
What's that?
Are you going to do the poetry of the sixth sun?
I did. That was the last one. So
That was the last one. Okay.
I did it in a way. I did it in a way that made it seem it was part of the first one. You know?
Oh yeah.
Like a journey through the sixth sun. Yeah.
All right, but great. No, I always appreciate your poetry and your.
Thank you.
Are you joining us on the panel? Why don't you join?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Introduce Brendon, and I can introduce Kathleen and Geraldine.
Okay. All right. So hello again to everybody here and all the YouTube channels that we have just gone live on. So thank you for being a part of this. This is panel 3, the experiencer and interdimensional. The reason why I put the word interdimensional in it is because there's this whole conversation now of people saying it's not an extraterrestrial phenomena, it's the interdimensional phenomena. And I always felt when I first heard about extraterrestrials, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians. I always just thought extraterrestrial and interdimensional were interchangeable, especially because, if we travel through space to come to Earth, it's going to take a long time unless you can travel interdimensionally. So this panel is the interdimensional experiences that go beyond even like the extraterrestrial worlds, right? Like, what are these interdimensional worlds? And just making sure all the panelists are here. We do have, okay, Sherry Wilde's on. So if the panelists want to go ahead and start the camera, and Alan, you can officially begin.
Yeah, the realm of the experiencers, and I'm so happy Kathleen Marden's here, because she is a real foundation for understanding the experiencers' evolution, in a sense. And experiences really are the key to the phenomena. I feel, the government can release all they want to say, and politicians can do, and military, but we really want to know what's going on. We have to talk to the people who are having the experiences with the phenomena. We can't expect the government, and we'll do a panel after this on disclosure, but we cannot expect answers from people who may not even have answers. So this is an ongoing process of awakening, and the experiencers, as we become more conscious of these other realms interdimensionally, experiences take on more and more important part of understanding the phenomena, understanding human existence, and understanding our relationship to the cosmos. So I'm happy to be here with these beautiful people. So, okay, Neil, do you want to introduce
Yes. So I'll introduce Brendon here, and you can introduce everybody else. And so Brendon is from Paradigm Shift Central, and just the story of how we got connected. In 2008, I came across Brendon's information, and then he came out with a documentary soon after that, I think 2009, of his experience at Lucidity Festival, right, Brendon? And then, I was following him for a few years, and I was blessed to have a connection with him around 3 to 4 years ago, in which we basically started sharing information and connecting on like a deeper level. And now he's become a really good friend. So Paradigm Shift Central is not only are they doing a lot of awareness and work in order to create cultivation and cultivate connection within the community, right? But also provide tools and resources for other creators when it comes to consciousness and light workers, practitioners, to create a central base where they can share ideas. They can also receive insight and experiences from Brendon's, experiences, in order for them to utilize it in their own efforts to get this awareness out. So he's really created a support group for consciousness creators around the world. And Brendon himself is just a pioneer of a lot of incredible awareness, really great heart, and just is a connector and a networker of individuals. He is an incredible host. We've had him on multiple Portal to Ascension events, and you're going to be seeing him as well over the next 5 days for the Star Beings event. So welcome, Brendon. Thank you for being here, brother.
Thank you, Neil. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be able to be here. And again, just hello to all the other amazing hosts and facilitators I have with us. It's really special to be among such visionary thought leaders. And again, for myself, everything that Neil said, absolutely. In addition to that, a big part of my story, which ties into my contact experience, which I'll actually tell you a little bit about through my story, is the fact that I'm also a new father, which again, for me is just like such a motivating force behind wanting to continue to be able to facilitate these discussions and continue to help shift consciousness and choose to be the change that we wish to see in the world. Long story short, I was just going to say, just to follow up on the updates Neil was just mentioning about Paradigm Shift Central, things are just kind of in between updates, but for anybody who wants to stay in touch with me and what I'm up to, my Instagram is Spider-Man. So you guys can remember that, and be sure to follow me there. Send me a direct message. But yeah, I've had quite a handful of contact experiences, and I'm super excited to just be able to be a part of this discussion and share some of my own wisdom and insight among such experts that we have here this evening. So thank you, Neil, as always.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing about your experiences, Brendon. So
thanks, Alan.
Okay, yeah, I want to introduce Kathleen Marden, who, like I said before, maybe you weren't here, Kathleen. I said you hold an important place in the history of the phenomena, being there, hearing Betty Hill's calling your mother, her sister, Betty Hill being your aunt, about what had happened to her and her husband Barney, on the evening of September 19th, 1961. There's a plaque that I try to visit every time I'm up in New Hampshire that says, this is where Betty and Barney Hill were taken by other beings, and it's right there on the side of the road, and it's an official plaque by the state of New Hampshire. It's just like, really? The state of New Hampshire saying this is possible? So just, I know you were an important part in getting that, up there done, and you're an important part of history, and your own experiences are key to understanding the phenomena. So I just as an introduction, where do you understand the interdimensionality of the experience as opposed to, oh, they're just aliens? Can you just talk about that? Because Neil brought that. Yeah. Wait, unmute. We don't want to miss anything. Wait, unmute. Kathleen, you have to unmute. Wait. Neil, can you get Kathleen to unmute?
Oh, sorry about that.
You want to miss
Let
anything about the-
me first say that I'm an intergenerational experiencer, and I have only recently come out with that information. I thought I would take that secret to my grave because of the level of harassment that my aunt and uncle underwent for so many years. My case was investigated way back when it happened, when I was 17 years old, the first memories, and then I was visited through my lifetime periodically. And I decided to come out rather than taking it to my grave in my new book, Forbidden Knowledge. And that includes the multi-dimensional aspects of all of this. For the first 20 years of my research and investigation with the Mutual UFO Network and as an independent investigator of abductees, is what we call them in that time frame, I perceived of all of this as being nuts and bolts, that these entities were coming here in spacecraft using some kind of advanced technology, and that they were all three-dimensional, just like we are. But then in 2011, when I did my first study on 75 people with Denise Stoner, we asked a question about interdimensional contact, about orbs, and that sort of thing. And I had to open my eyes and realize that those orbs that we saw in my childhood home after that encounter that my mother and I had when we were taken to Crafts was related to that experience, not something that just happened separately. And so that took me on a very long journey to explore what this is really all about and the dimensions. And we can get into that more. I don't want to take up too much time here.
I definitely want to explore that when we go around after the introductions, because I think it feels like that's a big key in understanding the phenomena and who's visiting us and who we are, essentially. You know, we cannot separate ourselves from whatever's out there, whatever you want to call these beings. That's what I feel. So thanks. Okay, Kathleen, thanks so much for being here and all the work you've done. Now we'll go to Sherry Wilde. How are you doing, Sherry? Haven't seen you since Contact in the Desert a few years ago. And yes.
Hi, Alan. Yeah, it's been a while. I've been off the circuit. I've been hiding away at home. But nice to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Can you share about why you were, I mean, you had some very intense experiences, and is it The Unforgotten? Is that the name of your book? The
Forgotten Promise.
Yeah, The Forgotten Promise. That is an amazing book. I have it, and it's like what you went through to work through from the fear into the acceptance and the transformation. But is there a continuation of that you've been experiencing the last couple of years, or do you retire?
No, there sure is a continuation of it, Alan. And there's another book, if I can ever get my health to the point where I can do it. I want to definitely tell the story, because what happened after me, since the book came out, well, from the moment I signed the contract with Dolores Cannon to have it published, from that moment on, the attacks began. And I was subjected to quite a bit of damage to my body. I was poisoned a couple times, and I was hit with energy weapons, different types of energy weapons. And so I would like to tell that story, definitely, because I think that's part of what it depicts what can happen in this world, the powers that were the controllers of this planet, and how they worked so hard to keep the secret. And I was visited all the way back when the Center for UFO Studies was doing they were doing the investigation of me in the late 80s. And I was visited in my hotel room when I was in Chicago. I was there for regression, and the infamous Men in Black came into my room and warned me to not to ever talk about this stuff ever, and that I was not to go forward with the hypnosis. I was there for my second or third regression. I can't remember which one. And they said I would not be allowed to be regressed, and no one was to know about what I knew. And if I ever talked, I would pay for it. So I wasn't able to be regressed that day, but I went on with my life. And when it came time for my mission to be activated and for me to write the book and start talking about what I knew, I went ahead and did it. And my guys had warned me. They said, we can't, they know you're here. I mean, they told me that even before the visit from the Men in Black. And they said, we can't guarantee your safety. And they suggested that I leave, that I leave the planet at that time. That was 91, and I didn't want to do it. I had children. So I stayed, and they said, we can't guarantee your safety. So I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. They really came after me. So yeah, I do want to tell that story at some point, because it's incredible. It's been quite a journey, quite a journey.
Hear it, but are you on the other side of that now, or do you feel like it's like over that threatening?
The poison hit me really bad, so I was physically unable to do any kind of talks or anything after the year. I think the last one I did was Contact in the Desert, was one of the last ones I did, and I got hit with a directed energy weapon while I was there. Not a bad one. Like I had 2 other episodes of that nearly killed me. But every time I would try to do, if I got healthy enough to do an online interview or a Zoom call or something, and because I did try to do it, it's just in me to talk about it, and it just was something I felt compelled to do. But every time I would do it, I would pay for it by being attacked, and I would be told, like when they hit me with a directed energy after I did a series of talks, they told me that this is what it's for. You did that, and that has finally stopped. About, I haven't done that many talks, but I think I would say about 6 or 8 months ago, maybe within the last year, it tapered off and it stopped now. My health is such that it's hard for me to commit to doing any of these kinds of events, because I don't know how I'm going to be the day of the event. And I hate canceling on people, but I do still feel compelled to talk. It's just, I'm just wired to do that. So I do what I can.
Thank you for being here. We'll send you some energy and a field
Thank
of
you.
protection. And so thanks.
Thanks.
I do want to hear that story, and like maybe Geraldine Orozco, who works with many experiencers on all sorts of levels of their interaction. And Geraldine had this sudden awakening when she was a meditation teacher, and I'll go fast through it, Geraldine, because I know you have a lot to say, where she found herself aboard a ship and these beings were brought to her, and it's like it was a huge, like overnight transformation, and awakening of this interconnection. And now she's downloaded so much science, DNA science, morphogenetic science of these other realms, that she's become a real leader of this new understanding of the experience and this interaction on a DNA level. That's one of the things she does. So Geraldine, do you have anything to say about what Sherry's been through? Because I know you talk to a lot of people.
Yeah, actually, Sherry, thank you so much for sharing such a powerful share with us. And to be honest, it's a very very interesting feeling to hear someone else sharing similar story, because I myself have gone through the similar situation as Sherry for many years. And I know many of my clients do go through that. So I think it's definitely something that deserves a very serious conversation to understand, what is the retaliation that's occurring here from this shadow aspect, perhaps, in which experiencers that do come out perhaps publicly are kind of experiencing sometimes these kinds of retaliations. So, I think my perspective about it at this point, having dealt with that many years and having been able to overcome these things, is understanding the mechanics of co-creation and the involvement, how ET contact is really something that is from the inside out genetically, that we can learn how to understand the data that's being expressed. What the experiences that we're having are, in a sense, Kathleen was going to talk about the dimensions from which these beings are, we're interacting. This is something that we need to become very familiar with, because we need to know how the mechanics of interacting in these different dimensions really affects us, how it activates us genetically, interdimensionally, and within our family lineages. I think that within that information is the key to understanding how to transcend some of these lesser, maybe attacks, parasitic interactions when it comes to contact.
But is there anything you could say though that would
Yeah.
that can help people not just but adjust to this
Yeah.
intensity, this encounter type? Yeah, what could you?
Yes, well, it really, the mechanics of this interaction is really understanding the mechanics of co-creation. And if we do understand that, the human body, the human biostructure within a morphogenetic field with which we exist in, we have an incredible power to alchemize. We have the power of alchemization. And that alchemization process is something that happens not only biochemically, electrically, but also in our DNA as a result of biochemical, electrical affecting our DNA. So, for example, if we are in a state of constant fear and anxiety, we can actually alchemize some of these processes and transmute them into a higher octave. And therefore, the output of that will allow our interactions to be on a higher range, a higher vibrational frequency, the kind of encounters that we're going to have. There are tools of cloaking that we can do, cloaking technology within the body. We literally can cloak ourselves vibrationally in a frequency, ourselves and our home, in a way where we can protect ourselves from these attacks. And I know this not just by conceptually talking about them, but actually having done that in many occasions, and also work with my clients to do that. So there are many techniques that can be done, and it's about the mastery of the physical body as a vessel to experience interdimensions, many dimensions, infinite dimensions. I think it's part of where ET contact meets consciousness, ET contact meets spirituality, in order to understand how to become friends with the unknown in all dimensional levels. And the key is this alchemical transmutation process that really is the embodiment of unconditional self-love. And that is, the heavy of it, but also it is a simplified way of understanding these complex concepts.
Thank you. I mean, I know everyone handles it in their own way, and we'll get back to Sherry and see how she's been able to transmute. Thank you, Geraldine. But let me go back to Brendon and say, Brendon, do you want to share some of your experiences? And yeah, there are forces in the world that are not so nice out there, and we are, whether it's somebody cutting you off in traffic or it's an ET that wants an essence of the soul, but there's also a lot of opening and positive things that are happening too, to human consciousness, I feel. But Brendon, where do you fit into this whole picture? And do you want to share some of your experiences? Because I think people
Sure.
like it.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you again to Kathleen and to Sherry and to Geraldine. It's wonderful just being able to hear from everyone. And yeah, again, so a bit about my perspective, my experience on this, and also just kind of like sharing a little bit of my own meditations and insights that I've acquired over the years. With anything that we're looking at, it's always going to have a yin and a yang side to it. And I think sometimes people will hear other stories about contact experiences, or they'll hear propaganda, and it can scare them, and it can kind of really push them away and give them, an excuse to kind of turn a blind eye. But I think if we're doing that, we're putting, like everything into one box, and that's simply not the truth. And I think, again, within the door that is the contact experience, it's really opening us up to a much bigger conversation about what it means to be not just human, but what it means to be a conscious entity. Because I think through the discussion of understanding what contact is about, it's really a stepping stone to being able to understand that for many of us, the stories that we've been led to believe are just a small sliver of being able to understand who and what we truly are. And when you think about it, these quote unquote powers that be and everything like that, a lot of times, if you were to see it from their perspective, they see us developing a good relationship with the ET contact phenomenon as a threat to them, because it brings us back to our power. It has the potential to bring us back to a place of our own self-actualization, self-realization, the alchemical transmutation, as Geraldine was referring to, and really allowing ourselves to step into our roles as cosmic citizens, which again, if we were to do that, suddenly all of these institutions and games rules that they put in place to basically, harvest our energy over the years, suddenly those would just not necessarily have the same effect, because we would really also be stepping into our roles as conscious creators, but also benevolent conscious creators. So in the same way that there are many people, again, who I would like to think everybody who's tuned into this broadcast right now, we want to be able to see the best for people. We want to be able to see people live a happy life, to live a happy, healthy life, and to live a life of excitement, joy, wonder, and awe. And I think that's a big part of what the human experience is also about. It's about the discovery. As Geraldine was saying, it's about being able to lean into the mystery, fall in love with the mystery of the unknown. And so, without me necessarily, and whether it's me or anybody else, I think for anybody who's listening to this, I think what's always important is to approach this topic with discernment. Just because somebody's saying this and they have their own experience, that's great. Use that as information, but ultimately allow yourself to just kind of feel into it with your own intuition and decide, is this something that I want to be able to ingest and process further and even integrate? Or maybe that's not necessarily something that I'm feeling called to right at this time. But within this, I want to be able to just kind of share my story as information and data that I can put in front of you that is very real for me, and ultimately encourage you to think for yourself. And I think that is a very, very important part with any of the whole conversations with ETs, UFOs, and disclosure and all of that, because again, there's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of stuff that's being thrown our way. So discernment is our most important tool, and also discernment even from our own mental biases that we may have, and really just kind of clear the slate. And then so I invite everybody here, to as you're listening to me and as you're listening to the other speakers here, try and just clear the slate. Imagine this is the first time you're hearing about this, and allow yourself to just receive some of the insights and the experiences that we have to share. So for me, my own personal perspective, and it ties in with what has already been said a little bit, I agree. There was a period of time where I thought that the ET contact phenomena was purely just a physical thing. But then as I started kind of going through my own shift in consciousness, it very much started leaning towards this idea of interdimensional. And one of the ways that I like to be able to really approach this process is really to bring focus towards the relationship that we are developing with these beings, and not necessarily, and kind of lessening the divide between them and us. Again, you look at the propaganda, and they're doing everything they can to create a big gap between us and them. Oh, we're here on Earth. They're way on the other side of the galaxy. Oh, we have 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes and a nose. They got tentacles and green skin and big eyes, and they're really scary looking. It's just whoa, that's not us. That's really far away from us. That's actually kind of scary. But when you realize that, if anything, and for a lot of this, feel into it intuitively, because I think a lot of the information that comes up related to the ET contact, it's not even something where it's just I know that's a fact. It's more so there's something inside of me that actually feels that there is a truth to that. So practice feeling into your own internal compass that can discern what is and what isn't true. And there will be certain things that you may hear from me and other speakers that will really land with you, and you may be whoa, that feels like it's something I remember to be true, and really feel into that. And one of the things that I was, I'll just say this real quick, Alan, pass it over to you. One of the things that, for me, that really initiates this conversation is lessening the gap between us and these other entities. And so we can refer to them as ETs, interdimensional beings. And some of you have heard me refer to this in a little bit in the past, but I think in many cases, like honestly, more so probably than not, they probably look pretty similar to us. 2 arms, 2 legs, probably kind of like have this bipedal feature. Things might be a little bit elongated. Skin tones might be a little bit different. Eyes might be a different shape, but more or less the vehicle is similar, but slightly modified based on wherever they're coming from and their culture. In the same way we have different races and everything like that. And not to say there aren't ones that you got your mantis beings and your reptoids and all like that. But at the same time, I think it's important for us to kind of like begin to see them as other us's. And so this is a term that I actually like to be able to use. Instead of just referring to them as ETs, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, the term that came to me, even through my own experiences in meditation, was the term other us's. And so I use the term OUs. So when I'm referring to UFOs in the skies and also the beings themselves in my dialogue that I'm creating between myself and them, because I'm focusing on developing a healthy relationship, a meaningful relationship, a relationship that's more like family, I like to refer to them as other us's. So I'm going to tell you a little bit, after I pass it to Alan, a little bit of my own story about my own experience with the other us's and how that's totally changed my life, both for me and my girlfriend when we had those experiences. But maybe we can share it for later. I'll let Alan call the shots on that.
And then you could share the experience.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Yeah.
Plus, I do want to like get back to this whole idea of interdimensionality, and I'm an experiencer. So what I've noticed in looking at my interactions is that these beings are vibrating at a different rate of existence, of frequency. So when I've come into contact with them, it's hard to stay present. It's hard to stay lucid because their field, their conscious field, it's so different than ours. It's like trying to pick up Wi-Fi on an AM radio. It's like their field is so vast. So there's an altered state of consciousness that happens in the interaction, and it's hard to stay lucid. You need to really practice lucidity. That's why I talk about Whitley Strieber, who's been practicing lucidity for years, who's able to probably be more present than most people in these interactions. So in this field that we're engaging, I think there's people like Sherry who've able to perceive these other realities and try to bring them into the human structure. And it reminds me of that line in the Bible where if they eat of the tree of good and evil or of knowledge, they'll be like us. And there's something about that where we've been kept confined and isolated, and the grids have been shut down that have stopped us from allowing infinite consciousness. And then there are people who are poking holes in that grid and allowing the doorway to infinite consciousness to come in. And maybe and I think when we talk about beings and visitors, there's many, many levels, there's many types, there's many races. It's not just one. So it's not just human involvement, it's interactions with each other. And, Linda Moulton Howe says there's 3 races fighting for control of a planet Earth. I don't know about that, but I do know what we need to practice lucidity, I feel, in meeting other beings so we can meet them on the level they exist. Because when they come down to our level, it's distorted, but we need to raise ourselves up. I often use the analogy, if you're talking to your dog, you're not going to bark at them, right? We need to talk at the language of the more intelligent, more evolved, which doesn't make them greater than us. It just makes them maybe a little more intelligent stuff. So getting back to what Sherry experienced, which I know it's very serious and a lot of people encounter that. I'm curious, Kathleen, I'm sure you've heard lots of that. What's going on? Because there's a lot of great beings out there that really want us to wake up. And then there's beings that probably don't. What do you feel? And then we'll talk to Sherry, but what do you feel is going on, Kathleen?
I have learned a great deal from my personal experiences and also from the 3 studies that I did with experiencers of over 5,000 people. Also, I was MUFON's director of the experiencer research team for 10 years. So a lot of this information came to me, and I learned the most when I met a man named Kevin Briggs, who invited me and a team of researchers and investigators to meet the Council of 8. And this Council of 8 are a group of interdimensional entities who also claim to be extraterrestrials. So I don't think that we should look at everything in terms of, is it interdimensional or is it extraterrestrial? They can be both. And in terms of vibrational frequency, I think that we have to look at that in terms of lower vibrations and higher vibrations. Now, in terms of these negative entities that want to attach to us, to cause problems for us, to create pain in our bodies, to interfere with our sleep, that sort of thing. Even if you're familiar with the studies that have been done by the Defense Intelligence Agency, they refer to these entities as hitchhikers. And something that I found extraordinarily interesting is that when these individuals were out at the Skinwalker Ranch doing their investigations, suddenly, without any external trigger, they experienced extreme fear and dread. That is what causes these lower vibrating entities to be able to attach, to be able to come into our environment. And they, to me, they seem to have intelligence. They seem to have the ability to move from person to person. And the Defense Intelligence Agency research indicated that among these scientists who were doing the research, these entities, hitchhikers, went home with them and then attached to their family members too. So all the members of the family were having these experiences of being woken up during the night with entities hovering over them. And then it spread out to their family and their neighborhoods. So that I find extraordinarily interesting. I had my own personal experience when I was working with a man who was struggling because he was being taken into an environment where he was being tortured, where he saw other humans having terrible things done to them by some of these entities. And I went beyond where I should have gone, but it was my curiosity that caused this, and I ended up getting an attachment and struggled with this because I didn't know the answer at that time on how to detach this kind of thing. I was meditating, I was vibrating, I thought at a higher frequency, but what happened was this was like a cloud that came over me very suddenly when I was speaking with this man. And then I became progressively ill, didn't sleep well, had all sorts of interference, and finally it started to talk to me. And that's why I think it has consciousness. And I did everything that I could, religious things such as holy water, such as a Christian minister who can remove attachments, that sort of thing. And but she was doing it from a distance. It didn't work. So finally I called out to Kevin Briggs and I said, you know, at that time I had been meeting with the Council of 8 for at least 2 years, once a month. And I had a relationship with one who would come into my environment. I sometimes would see shimmering, sometimes not. I'd always feel an intense electrical tingling sensation in my body, high-pitched sounds in my head. So I did have this relationship with them, and they said that they would take care of me. And so I got in touch with Kevin Briggs and I said, look, this has happened and I want this to end right now. Will you please talk to the council for me? And so he agreed to, and it was the 9th dimensional entity. The council is 5th and 6th dimensionals with a couple of 9th dimensionals. And it was the 9th dimensional who immediately removed that from me. So I was very grateful, but it taught me a lot about dimensional levels and how we must keep our vibration up. In fact, the Council of 8 told us that they are here to attempt to increase our vibration, our spirituality, and the ETs that I have communicated with in my own life have told me that the biggest problem that we face as human beings is that our level of spirituality is out of sync with our technological progress. And when this occurs, it can lead to the destruction of the species, which is sort of what is occurring right now on this planet, with so many of our species becoming extinct and all of the climate changes that we're undergoing. So I think that what we have to do in order to remain in this higher vibration is through meditation, through protection, through divine light, and also higher vibrational tones as well that keep us sort of in that kind of condition. I know that these negative entities can come in at any time if you put yourself in their environment, and they can attach to anybody, or at least try to. So it's extraordinarily important for everyone to know how to create a good environment for yourself, even if that occurs, so that you will not suffer the way so many people have.
I'm glad you talked about your personal experience, because there are some not so nice beings out there that do live off of our energy field, and it's like we just have to be aware of all of it, and that's why it's so important to have disclosure, to talk out about this, to bring it all out, because we're all dealing with these frequencies, and if we're kept ignorant, then we don't know self-defense. We don't know that there might be some neighborhoods you don't want to walk in unless, you know, you're protected. So it's such a complex universe, and we just think it's all simple and this, and there's ETs visiting us and how nice, and we'll have some coffee with them. But no, it's so complex that I think we're just starting, and these experiences that people are sharing are so important to show us the landscape that we're dealing with on many levels. So Sherry, you worked through a lot of this stuff that was traumatic in talking about that in your first book, and then you came out and you seemed to be really in a great place, and then you're saying there was another wave that happened, that, or was it another level? What went on?
Here's what happened, Alan. For me, I feel like I was being pulled between the evil elements, I'll call them that, and then the higher dimensional beings, my family, my cosmic family. That's how I felt. I felt like I was in a tug of war. They declared that they were coming after me, and their intention was to kill me. And the fact that they were not able to kill me, I attribute that to my own perseverance and to my cosmic family assisting me. What they did to me, and first of all, let me make it clear that I'm not talking about ETs necessarily. I'm talking about the dark ones on this planet. Dark military is who came after me, along with some, I have memory of these little, what I would call Zeta Grays, maybe is what they look like. I don't know but they were dressed in military. It was all military stuff that was going on here. I had visits from Draco, but they didn't scare me. I didn't have any problem with them. They would show up here, and I just, quite honestly, I felt just overwhelming love for them. They didn't frighten me. These other beings, these other people were intent on keeping me quiet. They seem to know that if I, from what I've been told by many, many times, different people and from them even, because they always tell you what they're doing, is the fact that they knew that there was going to be a film or some kind of a TV series made about my book and about my life. And they didn't, that's what they didn't want to have happen. And because I think that they saw the impact that was going to have. And if I was not alive, that was the bottom line. If I was not alive, if I was not on the planet, it would not get made. So their reasoning was to just get rid of me. The way that they went about it was to poison me first. They poisoned me with mercury in the late summer of 2012, just as soon as I signed the contract with Dolores Cannon. And they followed it up with lead poisoning. And so I was poisoned, and then overlapping that were the attacks of the EMFs. They hit me with something and they told me what it was, because I would always demand, who's doing this to me? Why are you doing this? The poisoning, I knew about the mercury poisoning, but the lead I didn't know. That went on for over a year and a half. I was taking that in a pill that I had. I didn't know that it had been tampered with, but it turned out to be 98.7% pure poison. So it was a deliberate attempt. My cosmic family would send in these sweet little, after the mercury poisoning, these sweet little ETs would come in with this. They'd come down through my ceiling and land, and I would see them, and I would always say welcome, and they were just as jovial as could be, cute as could be, little dog-faced little ETs. And they would push this little machine, and they would say, "We're here, Sherry, we're here to clean your brain." That's what they said, because the mercury should have killed me. It should have disabled me. It should have taken away my ability to talk or even to communicate. It was terrible. They were using EMFs. One of them that they hit me with, I asked what that was, because my dog got so sick from it. It was called ELF, ELF radiation, which is extremely low frequency. And what that does is it lowered my frequency. They forced my frequency down so that that had been my defense. My whole defense against them was my high frequency, my ability to stay out of fear and stay in control of the situation, not allow this, declare my sovereignty, which I would do when they would come to my house. And they would literally show up and, to kill me. And my way of defending myself was to stand against them and just go toe to toe with them and tell them they did not have my permission to do that. They did not have my permission to kill me, to end my life. I was not in agreement with that. But they hit me. They also came at me with implants. They would put an implant into my head right up here, and it would go in one night, and the next night my guys would come and take it out. A couple of nights later, they'd come back, put it back in. A couple of nights later, my guys would come and take it out. I mean, I was like a ping pong ball going back and forth. And I asked them who was doing that, because I thought maybe, because my guys were coming and also giving me treatments. They were injecting me with amino acids, and they were cleaning my brain. They were doing all kinds of things. And so I thought maybe the implant might be a good thing. So I asked who was doing that. I didn't get an answer as to who it was, but I was told that it was called a Trojan horse implant. And I said, what does that mean? And they said to look it up, and I looked it up, and it meant that it was going to take over my thoughts, take me over without my awareness or permission. So I was like that. I mean, there was blood. I wake up in the morning, there'd be blood in my bed from them having been there messing around, putting this implant in and taking it out. It was like a circus here at my house. It was just like a circus, and it was crazy. So it wasn't subtle at all. It was a full-fledged attack on me, and I could hardly keep my thoughts straight when they mess with the poison in your brain. That makes it hard for you to reason and to understand what's happening. I did the best I could, but I was on my own with it. That's what happened to me. I mean, the story is.
You got through it, and do you feel empowered because you were able to withstand it and survive? I mean, how do you feel now?
I do. I mean, I called on my guys, but they had warned me that they didn't know if they could keep me safe. But I did call on my guys and my guy who I called Da, and that's my family. He came here one night, and a Draco had been here, and I said, you know, what does that mean? Should I be worried about that? And he said, no, Sherry, you long ago surpassed, sorry, you long ago surpassed that frequency. You know, you have no reason to be concerned. Stand in the truth of who you are. They can't touch you. And I knew that. I knew as long as I kept my frequency high, I was safe. It was like a dome around me. But when they hit me with that ELF radiation, I think that's what did it. My dog and I both we were just turned into dummies. I mean, that took us down. They did that for about 2 weeks, almost every night, hit me with that. And I think that was even worse than the poison. And
You
so
survived it. You made it
Yeah.
through.
I made it through. It's been a struggle. I mean, I'm still in treatment. You know, right now I'm still I'm doing a cleanse. I'm constantly cleansing my body, and I have to do that. I'm trying to get my frequency up. It's very difficult, but yeah, I survived it. I requested an exit in, I think it was 2014. I requested an exit and I was granted. I was told that I could leave. So I was planning to leave. I requested that, I think, in January or February of 2014. And they told me that I would die of pancreatic cancer that September. And I said, well, I wasn't thrilled with that kind of an exit. I was hoping a car accident. They usually do a car accident. And they said that's the best they could do. So I was like, okay, I was happy to be leaving. But what happened is I got contacted by Anelia Benz, who is a spiritual teacher that I really admire and respect a lot. And she reached out to me through Facebook and said that I needed to come and see her. And as much as I wanted to, I said, I can't, I'm too sick to make the journey. And she said, you need to come here. She said, I'll meet you at the airport. Just get on the plane, sit on the plane and just come here. So I did. I got dropped off at the airport. I made my way to the gate and I got on the plane and went out there. I get out there and the first thing she says to me is, when we get back to her place, is, you know, I bet you're wondering why I made you travel all the way out here. And I said, yeah. And she said, it's because I hear I've gotten word that you're planning to leave the planet. You're planning to exit. And I said, how did you know that? Because I didn't make that public to anyone. No one knew it except for my partner here. No one. I hadn't told anyone. And she said, well, your guys got a hold of me. And they can't reach you because of your frequency. They can't get a hold of you. They can't get through. And they want you to know that they want you to stay and continue with your mission. And I said, sorry, no. I'm leaving, you know. And she said, well, they're not the only ones I heard from. She heard from my group, different groups of ETs that I work with. She heard from my soul family and Mother Earth, and she conveyed to me the messages from them asking me to stay. And so I did reconsider. The messages from my soul family were very powerful for me. You know what they said, because they said, you really fought hard to be the one to do this mission. And you're going to be so disappointed with yourself if you leave without completing it. And I knew that to be true, because I do have memory of before I came here, and I know how hard I did fight. I wanted to take on that mission. And so that was true. And then Mother Earth asked me personally to stay. And so I rescinded my exit and I stayed. I've had many times when I've questioned that decision, Alan, many times, but I've stayed and I'm still here today, so I'm still standing.
You didn't share for other people that could help them know that, you know, their mission is important, because, you know, it can be hard for some people sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of the star seeds, and you know, are having a hard time of it, and it doesn't matter what their mission is. You know, this can be a very lonely place. It can be a lonely time. You feel like, you know, I don't know about everyone else, but, you know, I mean, I had lost my entire family. I have my family all abandoned me at that time, and a lot of friends left. So you're on your own, you know, and through no fault of your own, all you're doing is speaking up for yourself and speaking the truth as you understand it to be, trying to be a way shower. And, but they are your family and friends are oftentimes influenced by negative energies to abandon you, and that's what happened with me. I believe it was not of their own. They didn't leave me. My family was influenced. Every single one of them. I believe that.
Any positive thing for people who are facing the same situation?
Yeah, you have to remember what you're here for. You have to remember that you chose, like my soul family reminded me, you know, we all fought to be here. We all wanted to be here. From the other side, you know, we knew it was an honor to be on the planet at this time during this great experience that's happening as she moves from 3D up into 5D and beyond. And to be a part of that is amazing. Our soul will forevermore carry the colors of that experience. And not everyone, you know, there's all kinds of souls who would love to be here, but we're the lucky ones who got to be here. So you don't want to just treat that lightly. So you stay true to your mission, and you remember the truth of who you are, and don't let the 3D world, the matrix, suck you in, because that doesn't matter.
Thank you, Sherry. We'll get back to your forgotten promise next round, okay?
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Geraldine, so what is happening here from your perspective? Do people just have karmic patterns? Is there, are these beings really wanting us to stop our evolution from your perspective? Or does everyone have to move through a passage of their own awakening? I mean, there's so many levels here. What do you make of it?
Yes, you know, I think I would say that it's about you know, we're very special. Oh, I think somebody is
Is that your mic?
no, I think someone else.
All right.
I don't have access to mute people, so maybe we can mute.
Okay, I think we got it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so you know, I want to, you know, all of these conversations, you know, we hear these dark light experiences. You know, we have to remember that we are very, very special, very, and I don't say that just lightly. The fact that we incarnate into this physical vessel and have the ability of navigating many dimensions, not just our everyday life experience with family, friends, you know, all the achievements and experiences that we have in everyday life within the matrix, but we also are in learning how to navigate other dimensions, dream time, astral projection. We're learning how to deal with these encounters of what we see as phenomena because we cannot quite explain it. In reality, we are infants in our own human experience, and we are learning how to be human in this temporary little life of 100 years. And within that experience, each human comes encoded with an action-packed kit that allows them to have access to different aspects of this human experience. And I think that collectively right now, we are moving through a kind of higher octave collectively, in that more interdimensionality is part of our experience as a collective. So and this has been happening for many, you know, for a long time, but I think now we're getting to a very interesting pinnacle point where now our mainstream is even resonating with the conversations of interdimensionality. Government is talking about it. We have an entire government sector now dedicated to the study and research of interdimensionality, ET contact, and that should tell us something, that we are getting ready to catapult into the next level of not only technology, but into the next level of the activation of the human technology, which is the ability to navigate these realms. So with that comes a responsibility of the human. We have to wake up so quickly from the matrix, from this hypnosis of being in the human illusion that what is physical is the only thing that's real, into a state of understanding that this reality, it's not really real. It's just one of many parts of these illusions that we're experiencing. And to master that means to come into a place of observation. I have found personally and through the work with many other experiencers through the years that this state of observation actually becomes one of the most powerful keys of the human, not only electrically, bioelectrically, as I was mentioning earlier, but we are learning how to activate and unlock the potential of the architecture of the human body within the experience of the human, experiences. So how we do that is in this state of observation. Not only does the human body come into a state of homeostasis, energetically, the vibrational frequency that begins to rise, which we heard everybody on this panel talk about, high vibration, and it allows us in that place to begin to train this lucidity that you were talking about earlier. Becoming lucid means becoming aware of yourself consciously in order to navigate these different dimensional realms. So the ability to become aware of yourself means to study the self in such a profound way that when we encounter beings, we are not, the moment we begin to judge and categorize what we're experiencing, we are literally such an interconnected network of consciousness that we immediately lock that experience in a vibrational frequency. And it literally becomes a point of reference within our field that we keep coming back to. So to transcend that, to move beyond that, and to be able to break these moments that we create, points, reference points within us, we have to move through each one of these experiences in that state of neutrality. So I think that the power of understanding ET contact is in learning once again the mechanics of how we navigate these realms. And
if Sherry was in a more of a state of neutrality, she would be easier. Is that what you're saying?
that's right. And I think Sherry actually talked about that in what she was explaining, how when she was able to go to a higher vibrational frequency, she was able to kind of access, and she's still working on it. She's keeping that. Yes, she's absolutely right. It's very difficult. And because we are programmed at the cellular molecular level, energetically and through the nervous system, and even through our biome, as a result of our environment, to respond to these things in this way from the moment of birth coming into this life. So, to break these patterns is literally to break everything that everything that you are, and everything that feels comfortable. So there's a lot that has to be shaken up in order to be able to break these patterns. But once you do, and this is what all the greatest sages and all these enlightened people talk about, you enter into a place of bliss. And it is in that bliss that this architecture, this technology of the body comes online and begins to spin in high vibration and becomes in alignment with these higher vibrational realms. It doesn't mean that the journey is going to become easier then. We are learning how to do this infinitely, not only in this lifetime, but in many lifetimes. And I think that we have a lot of history that spoke to that. And ancient cultures that have also studied this, talked about it. And even in our modern day, we have a lot of those scriptures that have been kind of put away. But now is the time for them to come out. All of these technologies are coming out for us to apply them, because ET contact is our future. We're headed into that, into the mainstream. And, the foundation for that is being set now.
Well, okay. I mean, we'll hear from Sherry in a bit. That's one perspective, but everyone might be on their own path and dealing with the situation in with their own capacity to handle these multiple dimensions. And it's just hard to know if, like in Sherry's case, I don't want to speak for Sherry, but she's having difficulty because it's a personal assault, right, Sherry? I mean, you're not I don't know. I mean, is it about consciousness for you, or is it just to kind of address what Geraldine is saying?
For me, it's a confusing topic, quite honestly. I mean, I appreciate everything that she's saying, and she's well informed and knowledgeable on this subject. But you're right, Alan. I mean, everybody's story, and this is such a esoteric subject. You know, we don't know what we're really dealing with, other than, I mean, I know that these entities that I'm dealing with are my family. My contact experiences with the ETs are positive by and large. What I have problems with are the controllers on this planet not wanting humanity to hear what I had to say about the positive experiences I was having with my guys and with my ET family. They didn't want me speaking about this. And so it's the humans that I have trouble with. It seems that most of my problems lie with them. They were the ones trying to silence me. Now, at the same, what's that?
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, there's another component to this that I haven't brought in because it muddies the water a little bit, but I'll just.
Can you hold that until we get back to you?
Okay, yeah.
I do also want to tell you, Sherry's, Julian in the chat says, Sherry's book has helped me. I'm so thankful she wrote her book. Alan, if you could share this message with Sherry, that would be wonderful. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, hold that thought and we'll get back to you. I just want to, Brendon and then Kathleen will go around again. So Brendon, what's your experience? I mean, give us some hardcore experience there, because, you know, we want to hear like the meat of like people's, I think hearing about experiences helps other people deal with their experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the most important things that we can do right now is just have these conversations about experiences that are taking place. There's a lot of people that are having experiences every single day now. You know, there's some TikTok accounts that I follow that's posting new sightings. Now, you know, there's different variations of sightings. You have some sightings that can be very impersonal. You know, it might just kind of be out and about, and suddenly you look up and you see something odd in the sky, and the next thing you know, it's kind of over. And you're just like, what was that? Like, what did I just see a UFO? Did you see that too? That was kind of weird, but it sticks with you. Those type of sightings are important. When I was younger, back in 2011, there was a sighting that I had. That was my first sighting. That was kind of that format. The short story there, it was just me and my girlfriend were just kind of laying in a field at night, and one of the black triangle UFOs kind of passed over top of us and had a few lights on it, but it was like very almost like glitching out, and it kind of had like a cloaking device on it. Very weird scenario. But even just after that, it really initiated my curiosity. But even with that, it didn't really feel necessarily personal. There was nothing to it where, you know, there was a way for me to differentiate. Were they trying to reveal them to me, or was it synchronicity? I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Now, some would say that even from the dimension of these higher dimensional beings, synchronicity from them is actually a way how they conduct interactions, where they're showing up at certain places because they know that certain people are seeing them, and then those people that see them, that's kind of planting the seed, and then again it sparks this curiosity, and then down the road those people are continuing to develop a curiosity that can evolve into a more meaningful relationship. And then beyond that, there's a very particular story that I'll share, and I'll share from the heart, because I want you guys to be able to feel it, but I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, just being mindful of the time. But I do have a video on my YouTube channel where I spent like an hour just going into details about this, and I'll post that into the YouTube chat. You guys are welcome to check that out. And my YouTube channel, for those of you listening, you can just find it. It's Skull Babylon, or you go to my link in my Instagram at Mystic Spider-Man and scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see the link for the contact experience. But this experience for me was it changed us, and I say us because it was me and my girlfriend Lacey, and she's just out and about with our son right now. And in some way, it actually connects with our son, and I'll kind of plant that seed, but I'll explain exactly what I mean by that. So going back to kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier, for me, I like to be able to approach the discussion of these, the phenomenon of ETs and OUs, other us's, to really begin to kind of like looking towards what is the relationship? What is the relationship between ourselves and these beings? Beyond just the fact that it's fascinating, what do they have to offer us? And perhaps what can we offer them? it's not just maybe this one-sided thing where it's just like they're just here to be like, hey, like, you know, there's more out there, but maybe there's something that we are helping them with as well. When you think about it from a higher dimensional perspective, if you get into the concepts of karma and dharma and life families and soul tribes and all this stuff, you really start to kind of just wonder, just be like, well, wait a second, like these entities that are making contact with humans in benevolent ways, is their karma connected to us? Is it a part of their life mission to be able to come from wherever they're coming from into our space, into our bubble, into our matrix, into our time sphere, and to really just be able to, you know, play an influence that is going to, again, kind of like help usher into something bigger that can even ripple into their reality. So
yes, I mean, it's all karmic.
Go for it, yeah.
Interaction. So why don't you just tell us your experience and we'll...
I shall. And then we'll move. Yeah. So my experience, this actually came shortly after me and Lucy, we watched the CE5 documentary, which many people are aware of, from Dr. Stephen Greer. And that kind of introduced us to the concept of CE5. Before that, I kind of like, you know, heard some stories of people making initiated contact, even just from books back in the 70s. But to have a documentary that really just laid it out and showed that people are doing this actively and that there was a format that could be followed, it really just kind of sparked something inside of us. And then that summer, me and Lacey were actually planning a camping trip up north in Halliburton, which is in Muskoka in Ontario, Canada, which is where we live. So we're going up to like cottage country. And as we were going up there beforehand, we really just felt into our heart. And we're just like, hey, like we should practice CE5, or as I like to sometimes call it, just like human initiated peaceful contact. So again, CE5, close encounters is a fifth time. That's what it is. It's human initiated. And part of the protocol, just for those of you who may be brand new to this in short, it's about being able to essentially like meditate. And a lot of what Geraldine was talking about, really being able to kind of like bring yourself into this heart center, this blissful state where you're tuning yourself like a frequency. And then from that space, you're able to basically send out a signal that can be, again, kind of like pinged off of these other intelligent entities, and they can reach back out to you. So with this, me and Lacey, we went up to Halliburton with this intention to do CE5. And so long story short, on the very first day that we got there, it was this beautiful, pristine setting. We got there a little bit before sunset, and we had enough time to settle down and everything. And then by the time nighttime rolled around, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do this. No expectation. I'm just going to go sit out on the dock. I had my green laser pointer with me, and I'm just going to kind of see what happens. And so I went down on the dock and I just sat there, and Lacey was in the cabin, and I was just meditating for a while and just kind of like really just doing the protocols where I was just like going into my heart space and kind of visualizing myself from a bird's eye view and sending out almost like a laser into space saying, this is where I am. And I am open to receive. I'm open to make contact. And then as this continued, Lacey eventually came out maybe 15 minutes later. And then when she came out, we were sitting there and we were both meditating together, and she's had her own experiences. Both of us have had experiences prior to this, but this experience was something completely different because it was so personal. Within 15 minutes of us just literally just sitting there, something began to happen. And so one of the things that's actually quite interesting about the CE5 is the idea that the signal is amplified when you're doing it with a group, but it's also amplified when you're doing it with people who are in love, particularly partners, romantic partners. That bond creates like an amplification to the signal. So Lacey and I were obviously in the right place at the right time. Everything was in its element, and everything for the ingredients was perfect. So as we were sitting there, within about 15 minutes, I'm using my laser pointer and I'm looking out at satellites, and I'm seeing satellites going around and stuff like that. And then as we're doing that, that's when we noticed what appeared just at first is just kind of like a little light, just kind of like phasing in it. It just went vroom, just kind of like a light just turning off and then turning on and turning off. And then we were like, whoa, what was that? And then we kind of shine the laser pointer at it, wait a couple seconds and stuff. And then another one appears, but it appears like slightly over to the side. It's like, vroom. And then we're just like, and as soon as that second one happened, we were just like, whoa, okay. Like immediately, like Geraldine was talking about, it began to trigger lucidity. Suddenly, that moment, everything became realer than real. Suddenly, something was happening, and we knew that we were a part of it, and we could feel like the air was beginning to change. And then as that continued to happen, there was like more little blips, boom, boom. And then they started appearing kind of like in multiple spots up in the sky. And we were just like, whoa, okay, like something's happening. And then as that was happening, there was one particular craft, which we identified as a craft, the orb of light, an OU, that literally came down from high orbit. So we were sitting on the dock, and it would be just about to our 2 or 3 o'clock, and then like way up high, but then it like came down. Like it didn't just like fly across the horizon. It came in from high orbit, and it came down. Like it came in really close. Like by the time it kind of like leveled out, it was like no more than maybe like 100 meters from where we're on the dock up in the sky. And in this moment, what's very powerful is I actually want to be able to share with you guys a little bit of audio of me and Lacey talking right after this experience happened. And if that's okay with Alan, I'll play a little bit about this just after I explain it, because the energy of that conversation really communicates like what we were going through. But basically at that point, this orb was basically like floating down. And there was this very powerful energy that was both in the air and inside of us. And immediately, again, it felt like becoming lucid in a dream. It felt like a psychedelic experience. But afterwards, when me and Lacey were talking about, the thing that was so powerful is that it was an immense, overwhelming sensation of love, like love in its like highest form. Like if you could imagine like God, like loving you in a direct way, it was something like that. And so we could feel like this like energy activation happening through our body. A lot of what Geraldine was talking about is kind of like DNA activation. Something was happening within inside of our body. And so this craft, it appeared over top of us, and it was there for about like a good like 20-30 seconds of just kind of like floating. And then it just kind of went off towards the right. And then eventually it went off towards a tree line. Very gentle, very calming. And even in that moment, both Lacey and I were in telepathic communication with the craft or the inhabitant or the pilot or whatever it was. And we were just kind of like, hello, thank you. We're so grateful you're here. At the same time, even communicating, hey, this is a little bit overwhelming. Can you just kind of make sure you're taking it easy with us? And that's an important thing. You can communicate with that. You can say like, hey, like, dial it back a bit if you need to. And then so this craft basically just went over the horizon. But at that point, it's like, no, it wasn't a satellite. It wasn't, but it was so personal. And then so what my hypothesis was with a lot of this is that, you start getting into this idea of interdimensionality. And I feel that, again, a lot of, for many of us, some of the contacts we're having are actually contacts that we have with like what can be like star beings that are star family. So the pilot of that craft, whoever it was, we have felt since that time a very personal connection with them, and a connection that actually is carried into dream space. And Lacey actually had a dream that night that was like a continuation of the contact experience. And then even for us, like we actually have like very strong connections between the fact that like this UFO experience that we had, which happened on July 25th, which is in the Mayan calendar known as the day out of time, which is kind of like this weird portal space. And then the synchronicities were like super profound. And not only considering the fact that the day later I proposed to Lacey, which I had planned to do to begin with. So it was almost like this craft came down and it had a message with us. And it basically, and this is what Lacey was talking about, and she told me this, it wasn't me interpreting it, but the craft was basically like telling us like love each other, and not just love each other, like have a child. And so a year later to this experience was actually the exact day when Lacey found out that she was pregnant with our son, who is now 7 months old. So for us, all of these synchronicities, which are very personal to us, and I'm not like drawing full conclusions, but for us, it's like, whoa, wait a second, like, like time is not as linear as we think. Is it possible that, like there's a connection between this contact experience, the entities of this craft who felt like family, who we still recognize as family, as well as our own son, and as well as who we are? Like, do we know them in a higher dimensional state, even if we aren't fully conscious of it in some way or another? And absolutely, I'd say we do. So that energy of that experience has continued to stay with us. It's so incredibly visceral. It's still as clear as day to me since this moment. And for me, a big part of it, and I'll just wrap up here and pass it to Alan. And if we want to listen to some of the audio, I'll just play a couple minutes of it. But
because a little feeling.
Sure. Oh, you feel it.
I'm glad you brought
it takes you there. Yeah. And I'll just say this, and then we'll play. And Alan, if you can just make sure I can set it up to share audio, if you can do that, set me as host maybe just for a second. Yeah.
So I'm not. Let me see if I can do that.
Or maybe if Joan's there, she can just set me as host real quick. I think someone can. But anyways, just to finish the thought that I was on, and then we'll set up the audio, and then I'd love to again just pass it back to the panelists. For me, since that moment, it kind of like initiated a part of myself that basically solidified part of my role here to be an Earth ambassador, to be someone who is an ambassador, not just for like crazy far out ideas, but for my own experience. Even like I said before, I'm not here to say like, hey, like believe every single thing I'm saying. I'm simply saying, hey, this is my experience. I am an ambassador of my experience. But then within that, I am also an ambassador to things that I feel to be incredibly true, which is this idea that, you know, a lot of like these contact experiences are actually from like higher conscious civilizations that may not be so far away from us. It may be us in the future coming back and helping us in the past. It may be inner Earth. It may be hollow Earth. It may be Agartha. It may be these other dimensional spaces that aren't as far away as we think they are. Because again, it wasn't like the craft just like came from space. It's like it kind of like phased into our dimension. It kind of like popped in as if like a surface of water, and then a ship kind of comes into the water, and this is our space in the water. It's there for a bit, and then it kind of jumps out of the water, and so like we're almost in like a bubble sort of thing. That's my mind of how I conceptualize it. So I'll play for you guys. Oh, Alan, I think your microphone just glitched out for some reason.
Go
But
ahead,
I'd
you're
love to.
the co-host now.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay,
you
so
should
I'm
be
just-
able to show your stream now.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that real quick. I'm just going to hold on. Where is the screen share? Okay, so I'm just gonna do screen share real quick and set it up for advanced and computer audio. That's really all I need. I don't need the screen share. And so this is gonna just be audio of like after the experience happened, me and Lacey, like we went back into the cabin. And I'm like, I pulled out my phone, put it on the table, and I'm like, let's talk about this. What just happened? And so this is audio the moments after this contact experience happened, and just listen to our voices, and I hope you can kind of like feel the energy. And it was just like so much like yes, it was kind of like overwhelming, but at the same time it was just so transformational, so lucid, so powerful, and deeply rooted in love as well. So here you go, and give me a thumbs up if you can hear it. Okay. I'm just recording audio right now, but yeah, okay, quick recap. Okay, so like on the deck, I meditate for 30 minutes, set out intention. We went out there, sat out there with the laser,
and then I set an intention. I like did what you told me to do, and I sat there and I kept chanting inside my head, we're at Clear Lake, and then I pictured myself from like above, like way above me, like looking down on myself. And then I started using the laser, and then you were like using the laser, and we were just kind of playing with it, following satellites.
When we saw satellites, we saw like
but they were really far,
super far away, little tiny dots.
Far,
and then we started seeing blinks,
but then it was like
in a quadrant.
And then there was like one here and then one there, and then they all started like blinking.
And then there was
unison.
like multiple blinks, like blink, blink, blink,
blink,
blink,
blink, and then it appeared, and it was like,
and that one like
glowing.
wasn't there before, right? Like it like
no,
appeared.
And
like,
it was low, Brendon. It was way lower and brighter than the rest, and it fucking moved.
And
down.
then it started moving.
It went up, moved down.
So did you see it change direction? Like, did you see it move down and then up?
Mm-hmm. It did.
Yeah.
It was subtle. It was subtle, but it did move, and it got lower and went into the tree line.
Yeah. And then like literally just kind of like continued to travel over us, and then we tried going to see if we could see it from another vantage point, and that's where
it disappeared into the trees.
Yeah.
And we tried to communicate with it once it was above the trees.
And you said the shape of it. You said it looked
like an angel. Yeah, like it had like this like auric field around it. I have really good eyesight.
I think you saw it more than I could.
Yeah. You didn't see that?
I mean, I saw the light, but I couldn't identify the shape specifically. Like and that could have been like the shape of a craft or something like that.
Yeah, it could have been like just like the energy that was around it. I don't know.
And how were we feeling? Like my body started shaking.
Yeah, you started to shake.
I was like physically shaking.
You started to like shake.
It was like an energetic
I know,
shake.
like energetically, I was just like trying to put out this positivity and love, and like thanking it for coming, because I don't know, like I've never experienced like where you summon a UFO. I've never done that before.
Right, and that happened pretty quick too.
That didn't take very long. We just went out there, and it took like 20 minutes.
And maybe me sitting out there for 30 minutes ahead of time by myself meditating could have done something.
I don't know. It happened when I came out, which I gotta say, us together.
But that's what I'm saying. Us together, and that's what I was saying. Like literally, like the summoning UFOs to C5 happens with groups.
Yeah.
And specifically, it happens with when two people are in love, and
Yeah,
and the
you said
intentions are, I
that.
literally said that. So I'm like, okay, like I prime
And
things,
then you came
and
and
then
you like
you
sat
came,
behind
and I
me.
sat behind you, and then
And
we started
that's
breathing together. The
yeah.
breathing together could have been a part of like the ingredients or something like
Like
that.
we laid back and we just like breathed together.
Whoa.
I think
Whoa.
good.
And then we came inside, and now we're sitting here, and now we're recapping. So there we go. So that's a bit there. And then in the link on my YouTube, Lacey the next day goes into talking about the dream that she has that night, where the contact experience continued, and
Back
the
to that.
being to her in the dreams. Thank you, Alan.
Well, thank you. That's great to share actually of my like on the spot recording. But I want to ask Kathleen, look, we have such a wide spectrum of experiences, from the love that Brendon felt to like that intense attack. And is it that we just don't understand the whole cosmology of the experience? Or is it so vast? I mean, what do you make of this range? I mean, yeah, I also want to ask you about Betty Hill, but what do you make of this like huge like keyboard that we're kind of being subjected to in a way?
I think that is very experiential, and that I have to say that when I was taken to craft, even though, for many years I was terrified, when I arrived on that craft, I would feel a strong electrical tingling sensation in my body. And these gray ETs were projecting the most profound feeling of love that I had ever felt. I had not felt love that intense on this planet. So, it's, I know that the Greys have a bad reputation, but the ones that I interacted with were very nice. And some people would say to me, well, that was a deception, but I don't believe it was a deception. They had to take samples from my body in order to measure the level of toxicity that I was carrying around. I didn't understand it at the time, but I grew up just downstream from a major Superfund site, a barrel factory that was rinsing out barrels that went into the stream, that went into the water supply, into the lake. And so certainly it makes sense now. So I think that where we are in terms of understanding has a great deal of importance in what is occurring. If we are carrying intense fear, if we're living in a state of fear, then I think that we are open to more fearful experiences, or maybe more negativity. I think that it's extraordinarily important to learn to project love toward these entities when they come into your environment. For many, many years, I was fearful. And it was through sheer force of will and hypnosis. I'm a hypnotherapist and a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. And through self-hypnosis, I was able to learn to overcome the fight or flight response and to project love. And once I did that, I began learning. They began to communicate with me and to give information to me. And I think that that is extraordinarily important, so that if individuals are having great difficulty, I think it's well worth trying these methodologies of changing that relationship and being more on equal footing.
So you're saying we have to change it on our side, like if you're feeling fear, love the being, or send out love, because maybe that's the universal language. Or I mean, your aunt Betty Hill said some interesting things where she would also be able to feel if there were UFOs around, and in a way she went through that process, right? Can you talk about what Betty Hill, because she is like ground zero for the experiencers understanding. What was her process? Because I'm also want to know more about her. Right.
Well, you know, when she was leaving the craft, the entity that was with her communicated that he realized that she had been very frightened, and he apologized. And she said, do you think you might be able to come back? I know people who have more information than I do who could communicate with you. And maybe you could talk with them, meet with them. And he said, it's not my decision to make. And she said, well, how would you find me? Out of all the people on this planet, how would you find me? And he said, we can always find those that we're looking for. So this may not have been her first experience, but after the hypnosis sessions that she and Barney underwent, a team of scientists invited her to participate in what they called a psychophysics experiment. We call it a C5 experiment today. And so this team of scientists would give her a script, and she was to send telepathic messages to these ETs every day at a certain time. And when she sent these telepathic messages, she would measure the period of time between the beginning of sending the messages until the scientists were able to observe the craft, or wherever she was sending the craft to, someone would observe it. She sent that craft to my grandparents' farm when my mother and I were taken to craft. That was part of her experiment. And so she learned to do this, and she was able to call in craft. She was very widely criticized for this by the old, they call debunkers, who I, through all of my archival research in physical archives, discovered were really a team of disinformants who were working together to try to destroy her. For Sherry, I want Sherry to know that Betty's house was entered time and time again, and weird things were done to try to terrorize her, to try to throw her off balance. But Betty was very strong, and she just had one of the first systems installed in her house, security systems, that was wired into the police department. When I was harassed, I went to the police too. You know, many of us in the field have been. And so I even did a study, a small one, of 20 experiencers who had gone public, and each one of them, all 19 of the 20, had been threatened or harassed. So it was something that was common. It was happening in that time frame. I don't know if it still is or not, but it was back in 2014, 2013, when Sherry was having that experience. I was also threatened, drugged, and exposed to a pathogen in that time frame.
Know that that you were so yeah, and these are humans that are doing it somehow.
Yes, this was humans. And if you say anything about it, then they'll try to spread lies that you're paranoid. So I very carefully documented everything and went to the police. And, you know, it eventually stopped.
Do you think they're targeting humans because somehow you coming forward and Sherry are changing the timeline, that they're trying to manipulate in a certain direction? And if people are coming forward, there's another shift. It seems like it has to do with timeline somehow to me. Does that make sense?
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I just know that, you know, in that time frame, the U.S. government was covering up, and had been for a very long time. They didn't want the public to be aware of the ET presence and particularly interaction with humans. And so, they did what they could to encourage us not to speak. I was harassed after I wrote with Denise Stoner, the alien abduction files. They told me I was frightening people.
That's so awful. And it's still going, it's lessening. I mean, this disclosure panel we're going to do after this, we can see there is a shift in the consciousness of the people we want to know. But one more question I want to ask you about Betty is that she said she remembered that experience every single day of her life. Is that true?
She did. She said it was the first thing she thought of when she woke up in the morning and the last thing she thought of when she went to bed at night. It had a profound effect on her life. And even though there was an initial sense of being frightened by this, she, before she died, said that it was the most important experience of her lifetime, and that she was very happy that it had occurred, that she had had the opportunity to meet and interact with these non-human entities.
This was the September 19th, 1961 experience she was talking about.
Yes, but she did have other experiences. Beyond that, she simply didn't make it public because Philip Klass and his cronies were attempting to destroy her in every way, disseminating false information about what happened to her, about who she was, about her personality. They rewrote the story, every part of that story, and added false information, retracted the truth. And that's initially why I came forward in this field to speak about this, what occurred in my investigation of her experiences.
Well, I'm so glad you have come forward because you really are a direct link to that first coming out. And is there a place I can find her saying this is the first thing I think of in the morning? Last time, just want to quote that.
It might be in my book Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience that I wrote with Stanton Friedman. And I updated that in 2021, the 60th anniversary edition, with all the new scientific evidence that has been evaluated in laboratories by scientists and new information that I've learned since then. So it could be in one of the chapters of that book.
Yeah, one more question I want to ask you is that what new thing are you learning about the experiences phenomenon that's just kind of like, oh, really? That's happening also, or something like that? What have you seen like?
Well, I'm hearing from many people who are in direct contact and frequent contact with these interdimensional entities who sometimes materialize in front of them, and they're receiving information. Some of them are receiving prophecy. There's this sense of Marian apparitions that seems to go along with some of this, which I find extraordinarily interesting. And so I'm sort of looking into this aspect of it. I don't have any conclusions, but it certainly is interesting.
Yeah, you know, Chris Blutso is also speaking about the Marian apparitions. Is he the person you're referring to, or is there someone else?
There are others, but Chris Bledsoe is one that I actually wrote about in Forbidden Knowledge.
Yeah, there's something, and that Marian, the divine feminine apparitions that are appearing to people shows a sort of morphing of the phenomena from maybe ET to spiritually awakened beings or avatars, or it something is changing, it seems to me, about. So thanks.
Yes, I think so as well, and I find it extraordinarily interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. Okay, stick around. We're going to another round around, then we'll wrap up. So Sherry, that brings us back to you. And thanks for coming back on. And when you wrote this book, The Forgotten Promise, that was a whole transformation inside you that you had to work through. So what was the forgotten promise? And is there another level of the promise that maybe you're still remembering?
I am still remembering. It's interesting. My guys told me a long time ago that it would be like the layers of an onion being peeled away, my remembering the truth of who I am and why I'm here. So the forgotten promise, the title comes from, I wrote the book against my will. I didn't want to write the book. I really liked my life, and I knew what was going to happen to it if that book got written. But I was forced. They took over my body and they started writing it. And then I got hooked on what I was reading because it was answering a lot of questions for me. And I was interested to hear because it was about my life. And I had all these missing episodes from my life, things that I didn't understand that had happened. And so I said, okay, I'll write the book then. So I wrote the book with their help. And after it was written, I wasn't going to have it published. I wasn't going to send it to a publisher. But then my Reiki guy who I go to, who's a very evolved, he's a Pleiadian actually, in a starseed. I went to see him and he gave me a message after he did his Reiki session with me. He said, you know, there were a lot of angels in the room. He said, unlike usually, the room filled up with ETs when I would go to him. And we always got a kick out of that. But this time he said the room was filled with angels. And he said there was one angel in particular, introduced himself as Archangel Gabriel. And he said, I looked at him and I said, you mean the Archangel Gabriel? And he said, he started to unfurl his wings. And he said, no, that's okay. And he said, he had a message. He said, he gave me a message for you. And I said, I don't know if I even believe in archangels. And he said, you better believe in him because he was here. And the message is that you wrote a book. Did you write a book? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, Archangel Gabriel says you have to have that book published. And I said, oh, come on, really? And he said, you're supposed to have it published because it's going to be made into a movie. And I said, not that again, the talk about the movie. I said, it's just a little book. I said, it's not of any importance. I said, I don't want to publish it. I said, it's going to blow up my life and ruin my life. And he said, well, he gave me that message for you. And he said, if it were me, I think I would listen to it. So I went home and I Googled how to publish a book and sent it off. And of course, Dolores Cannon took it and she was the publisher. I broke it to my daughter on Mother's Day of the year 2010 or 2011. No, later than that, 2012. Whenever it was with the publisher. I broke it to her that it was going to be there was going to be a book coming out about the experiences, which she knew from having been my daughter. She was very aware of everything that was going on in the house. And so I told her about it and she went ballistic. And she's right. She didn't want it to ruin her life. I saw her perspective entirely, but I couldn't do it. I felt like my hands were tied. I mean, it was my mission. And she didn't want it to reflect on her. She has a business in this town and she just didn't want to be the crazy woman's daughter. You know, people were already talking about me because of all the activity around my house and my daughter's friends who were at my house and they saw ETs, they heard things, they saw the ships. I mean, there was just so much weirdness in my life. And so I was the subject of a lot of gossip locally. But it never affected my business. I didn't feel it ever affected my business. But she was afraid of what it would do to her and her reputation. And she said, if you publish that book, I'll never talk to you again. So I decided that night to not publish it. I decided I was going to call Dolores Cannon in the morning. I was going to talk to her mother to mother and say, you know, I'm not going to do this to my children. But that night, my guys came in, my main guy that I see, came in a big flash of light and booming spectacle he made of himself coming in. And he said, I hear that you are planning to not have the book published. And I said, that's right. And he said, why are you doing that? And I explained to him why. And he said, do you remember? You took a vow, Sherry, you made a promise. And that's where the title comes from. After my visit with him, he showed me that I wasn't going to salvage my relationship with my daughters, no matter what I did, that it just wasn't meant to be, that I just wasn't going to be able to have that. And that it was my mission that I did promise and I did take a vow. So I went ahead and had the book published, and it did blow up my life. My whole life blew up, and but that's the way it goes. It happens.
Well, you're
So
glad you did it though, right? I mean, that was,
now that I'm coming near the finish line, I wouldn't change too much, except I wouldn't take those damn little pills that were that were poison. That were supposed to be helping me. But other than that, I don't like being sick every day. It's not fun, but I am honored to have been on planet Earth and played the role that I have played. I think once the film gets made, the TV series gets made, it is going to have a huge impact. It's going to, especially if she can get in the later part, because the book is minor, I think, compared to what happened afterwards. I think the meat of it's not going to be so much about the contact. Contact is getting to be so commonplace anymore. I think it's more about the control system on this planet and what humanity has been put through on this planet, being enslaved the way they were and held back by the controllers who tried to stop this whole ascension process from happening. And that's what them trying to kill me. That's what that was all about.
did you ever make peace with your daughter? Just curious. I mean, if you want to share. No.
Neither of them will talk to me. No, or my family. So it's part of the price that you pay, for being outspoken, for being an ambassador like this. So
It's helped a lot of people are saying that online. Joan, do you want to tell Sherry what you said in the chat there? If you want to come on, and then we'll kind of.
Sherry. It took me 7 years to really come out as Joan of Angels. It was very painful. I was in a shop one day with my daughter. When I first got named Joan of Angels, I didn't know what to do. They said, who are you? What's your name? And I didn't say Dr. Joan Hangard, chiropractor, which my daughter would have liked. I slipped out Joan of Angels. And my daughter took me aside and she said, did you have to do that, Mom? Did you have to embarrass us and lead with that? And, it really touches me because my guys had told me that if I didn't say yes to the call, they wouldn't come back. And here you had this push-pull with it as you stepped into it. And yet here's what you said, and this I want everyone to know. We all took a vow. We all, each and every one. I'm going to talk about this in my presentation in a few minutes. Each and every one of us took the same vow. We committed, we promised, we said we wouldn't forget, and now is the time to wake up, and so it is. So
that's right.
My feedback on it. I'm so proud of you for sharing your story, Sherry, for all of us.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Happy to do it. There's more to tell. I'll tell it on the talk that I give.
Oh, good.
Whenever that is, but I'll tell the other part of it. Definitely, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, I'm interested because I think it's something. Not just a vow for me. This is the most exciting thing that's happening on planet Earth. Grant Cameron calls this the Super Bowl of all stories. It's like, what's more interesting than being challenged by an unknown phenomenon that has to be integrated psychologically, emotionally, cognitively, that will shift humanity? I mean, or you can watch the football game. No, what's more exciting? I mean, it's like, this is it.
It's not just the greatest thing to happen on planet Earth or to planet Earth. It's the greatest thing to happen in the multiverse, in all of creation. My opinion, this is the single biggest thing to happen in creation. Wow. And that's really huge. And it is. I don't believe humanity has any comprehension of who they are. They have no idea of where they're going and what's about to occur. And it's big. And so that's why my guys, they wanted me to stay here. I pleaded and begged to be allowed to leave many times, but they just kept saying, hang on, because it's going to be worth it. And so we're almost there, and it's very exciting. Well, awesome. Yeah.
No, thank you. Yeah. And I think Geraldine feels the same way. And Brendon, I think this is a turning point in history. I'm so glad we're all here. And I appreciate your honesty and how, deep that goes for you, Sherry. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like it's a lot more than a lot of people by giving up your family,
Well, I couldn't, I mean, I'm just wired, and that's just, I've been a warrior, a spiritual warrior, from the beginning of time, really. And so I'm just wired to do this kind of work. And I mean, this is my one and only time on earth, and it's been a real privilege for me to be here. I always was curious about what it would be like to be here in form, and now I know. So.
Let me just ask Brendon. Thank you, Sherry. Brendon has to leave. Brendon, are you still there? Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up here? And I guess he said he had to leave. So anyway, if he comes back, Geraldine, how do you feel about this? Because you're deep into this whole phenomenon. You're also pushing the envelope of experience, and what do you feel is coming down the line? I mean, we've had these intense experiences from fear to repulsion to love, and what do you see coming to the planet and the human race at this point in history?
Yeah, thank you. I think that we're coming to a culmination point in which more people are going to be talking about their experiences, and it'll become something that is a little bit more open. In many countries that has been the case already. People talk openly about these experiences, but in the US, I think we're catching up to that, where it's becoming something that is going to be something common, something that is known. And I think that opens up the door again to learning about what it means to have contact, going into the science, or the beginning of entering into a world of some kind of science that we're beginning to kind of construct together in order to piece together our understanding around this phenomena. So it's something that it's the combination between, it's where consciousness, science meets spirituality, and where that consciousness emerges. So I think the future of this is talking about what is consciousness? What does it mean to be conscious? What does it mean to interact with consciousness? And how are we participating in that co-creation of these kinds of experiences? Also, I think going back to the basic laws of nature and educating ourselves on the basic laws of the universe is going to be essential to our understanding of that. I talked about earlier the laws of mechanics, of co-creation, which is really the foundation of how we come into these experiences and how they function in the first place. It really is the language of vibrational frequency. And if we can learn how to master our frequency, we can learn how to master perhaps the kind of experiences that we're having. I think that we're learning that by interviewing so many different experiencers, and by everyone here in the panel today having this conversation. These are things that are, we're kind of solidifying our knowledge base as we go deeper into the topic.
Right, but what's cutting edge for you? What new thing are you learning? And also tell us how to find it. Yeah.
Sure. Well, for me, my area of interest is DNA, and how holographic DNA is the database of contact. How within our DNA is encoded the kind of contact that we're coming into, and how to transcend. And I will also mention to answer Sherry's question about military, because military is exactly the darkest part of this conversation, the shadow government that manages these dark programs for a very long time. It's hand in hand. The higher you go, the lower you also go. This has been the lesson for many human beings through history. We've had to encounter these dualistic aspects and learn how to navigate them. So I think the key to learning how to navigate that is within our DNA. And again, the mastery of our understanding of our vibrational frequency. So my primary work is DNA reprogramming, and of course through hypnotherapy, I do offer support into that, training into navigation into that realm. So you can find me at GeraldineOrozco.com, and also my YouTube channel, Geraldine Orozco. And it was, as always, such an honor to be here, everyone. Kathleen, Sherry, Brendon, Joan, and Ellen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Geraldine. You are at the cutting edge. I recommend having a session with Geraldine, listening to her lectures. She is understanding something about the biology and consciousness and the soul that these beings, I think, are interested in, as far as our experience and how its lineage is. And for me, it's just pieces now. It hasn't come together, but I just feel all these different pieces that are being looked at, and it is about the biology as well as the consciousness somehow. Geraldine and Brendon, any final wrap-up words?
Sure.
And yes, please share.
Sure. I'll just make it short and sweet. I know we're moving into more exciting things after this as well. So
it doesn't get any more exciting than this.
It does. And again, like I think being able to kind of like reflect on the excitement of where we are right now is actually very nurturing. Like for a lot of us, even if we've been in these conversations for the past several months, if not years, if we take a step back, we're just like, oh my goodness, like we are living in the science fiction movies that we used to watch growing up that we fell in love with. And now we're here, like it's not just something that we're watching on a TV screen or hearing about on coast to coast radio. It's like we are living it. We are sharing these stories and we are welcoming in these new experiences. So again, with a lot of what's already been said, I think what I want to be able to encourage for all of us who are here is to invite in this softness, invite in this gentleness, invite in this like process of returning back to the heart space. Because through doing that, I think a lot of what we need to practice getting better at is the practice of listening, the practice of really being able to kind of like open up this dialogue and to just be able to say okay, like ETs, like extra dimensionals, family, OUs, it just be like, we are here, we are present, we are listening. What do you have to say? Instead of always like kind of like putting forth this expectation and getting too caught up with the fascination of it, because I think it can be incredibly fascinating. I think if we really just bring it down to the relationship and the message, and then again, like from this, allow ourselves to just kind of put that message out to the universe. Because when we're putting that message out to the universe to say, hey, I'm inviting in more of my curiosity towards where this path is leading in a way that's going to serve both myself and those around me in the collective consciousness, the universe responds to that. I think a lot of like the consciousness of these entities it's still us. It is all just us. So when we're talking to God, when we're talking to the universe, we're talking to that connection, we're talking to them. And again, like I feel that they are inviting us into something very special, very important, and in many ways is a part of our destiny. And I think in 10 years from now, we'll look back on this and we'll just say, holy cow, this is where it began. Conversations like this is where it began. So I think for a lot of people here, like we are the vanguards, so hold that with a sense of humility and also a sense of duty. How do you want to carry this vibration? How do you want to carry this conversation? How will you continue to be this conversation with the people around you, whether that's through, inquiring further about CE5 and all of these stories and listening to other people, but also sparking the conversations, bringing this more into the mainstream, into the public spaces. Because I think many of us, if not all of us, have an itch inside of us that longs for kind of like the mystery of the unknown. And there's something inside of us, because it's who we are, that says, there's more to this human story than just what we've been led to believe by many stories. So the last thing I'll finish off on is let's bring intentional conscious awareness to the news stories that we are sharing. What is the news story? And this is a news story of kind of like passing of the torch in a lot of ways of people who have been involved for this field for many generations now into a new generation of people who are going to be passing this torch on even further. And they're going to continue to develop this relationship. And again, really to be able to say, well, what do we want this ET contact experience to be? How do we want it to serve us? Not just from a place of fascination, but from a place of altruism, and again, from a place of humility, and just again, really bringing it back to the softness and the gentleness of the heart. And doing, again, a lot of what even Geraldine was talking about, focus on you. Like focus on you in the sense of like really just kind of like attune your own frequency, attune your own vibration, really just kind of like bring yourself back into that space. And then as you do that, like the magic will kind of like begin to unfold around you and everything. So it's incredibly beautiful. And again, I think these relationships are just another mirror of consciousness. So once we see it as it's just us, it's the universe doing what it can to help wake itself up, you'll realize that this is how it was always supposed to happen. So feel into that and lead with love, I would say. So thank you, Alan.
How can people find you, Brendon?
People can find me on Instagram under Mystic Spider-Man. You can also check out the new project that I've been creating called Ascension Portraits, where we're using AI technology to depict people in like their higher dimensional selves, which is really cool. And you guys can reach me for that. And on Skull Babylon on YouTube and Paradigm Shift Radio on Spotify. And yeah, that's about it. Just check me out on Instagram and feel free to DM me there. So always a pleasure.
Thanks for sharing. And your, that was kind of intimate story, you and your partner out there. And I think it has to be that real to make people see how deep this experience is, how it's enlivening and loving, and how much it shakes people up. I mean, I still haven't been totally regressed back to where, I've seen some of it, but I know there's other levels and right, Kathleen? There's always other levels to go and explore, because this is so deep. And so, Kathleen, thanks so much for being here. Tell people what you're up to and what's exciting you now in this field and what's going on.
Yes, well, it was such a pleasure to be here and with everyone on the panel. And you can contact me at Kathleen-Marden.com. And as I said earlier, I actually wait for the universe to drop something new on me. I've been waiting, and suddenly it has dropped something new on me. And that is my interest now in the relationship and the apparitions, actually, that are appearing before experiencers. This change in our relationship with these extraterrestrials, and what do these Marian apparitions mean? What is this prophecy that so many experiencers are receiving at this time?
What is the prophecy there? Can you tell us what the actual prophecy is?
Perhaps something about the reemergence of the divine feminine after a period of tribulation.
I think so. It is so interesting. This is such a complex phenomena. And what, you have anything to say about disclosure? Because we're going to have a disclosure panel coming up in about an hour. Do you have anything you'd like to just say about where the government is in this whole thing at this point?
And we are going to need to close it out in a minute or a couple of minutes. Okay.
Anything?
But go ahead.
Okay, I've just been carefully watching the government. I've been very pleased with what the Defense Intelligence Agency has released and what scientists who have been contracted by the government, such as Gary Nolan, have released. So just proceeding very cautiously. I don't know what's going to happen, if they're going to pull back or if they're going to be truthful. It's just wait and see.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's because it's really about experiences like Sherry. Thank you, Sherry, so much for being here and being brave enough to continue sharing your story and anything. How can people contact you? Well, you're doing a talk this week, but where are you? How can people find you online?
I have a website, which is theforgottenpromise.net, theforgottenpromise.net. I'm on Telegram. I just have a channel on Telegram. It's just Sherry Wilde's channel. I'm on there quite a bit. So you can reach me through either of those means. And I do answer every email I get. It might take me a little bit, but I do get around to it eventually.
And you're talking this week, Joan. When is Sherry talking this week?
I actually don't have her schedule. She should know it though.
I should, shouldn't I?
That's
I'm one of the last speakers right at the end, on the tail end. It's me. And
on
then
Monday?
Is it on Monday?
I'll look for it, guys, and I'll post it.
Yeah, it's on the last day, right before Foster Gamble.
But I want to post the link for everyone for the upcoming event. You can still sign up for it. We're really excited about it. Neil is over the top about this conference, actually, that we brought so many speakers together with such advanced knowledge, and it's an intimate gathering. After this panel, it's like we open the door to a cocoon or to sacred space together, And I feel like we're sort of diving in. And so, guys, I've put in the link. If you haven't signed up, I think you might want to. All of us are going to be on it, most of us. And there's something very special about this next level of awakening we have.
I just want to say about this panel, the variety of experience in the range shows us how complex a field we're dealing with. It's not simple. And I say, and that's why I wrote this book, no one really has all the pieces in place, not the government, not even the inside government. Maybe the experiences have a little more, certainly not the media. They're the last to know, and the politicians. So we are forming a picture of the phenomenon that's unfolding in front of us. That's what I think Kathleen's interested in, this other level that's coming in. It's like, and even Linda Moulton Howe says, and she says, this is like a 16-layer chess game where they keep arranging the board. It's like, this is so challenging, and we need the intelligence and the heart, the compassion, and our full human being to come online to start to make a little more sense of what the biggest challenge in human civilization is, in human history. This panel kind of covered that whole realm. And thank you all here. Thank you all for watching online on all the different platforms. Thank you.
Well done.
All your work, every person here. And, stay tuned. We're going to do this closure panel in an hour. Joan's going to do a presentation now. And then the next 5 days, we're going to take this all apart and go deeper into each section. So it's a real mystery school. It's a real education that we're all putting it together. We're all in this together. We really are. And let's just learn from each other. Let's push the government to share what they know, because it needs to be all laid out on the table. The offense and the defense, the ETs, the experiencers, the DOD, every little piece, so we can look and see what we have, and all of our experiences are important. And so I encourage everyone to share what goes on, because there's a group I'm a part of. They say, no, we don't want to go public. People, that's over. It's time to go public, I think, with all of it, so other people can come out and share what they've experienced. So we are in some new realities, a new adventure. I'm Alan Steinfeld. Thank you for joining us and being here. Thank you, Joan.
That was just stunning. I just love the way you just wrapped it all up and you brought it back home together. So, you're talking, we have a couple of minutes to chat about Egypt too. Like, you made me think about how this is the wisdom of sacred times, sacred ages. I think Geraldine may be joining us in Egypt, but where's one of the first places? We're going to Glastonbury in Egypt, to sacred mystery schools now, and places where we can anchor in this energy.
And it's where the divine started to infuse into human consciousness. In Egypt, when Madame Blavatsky wrote Isis Unveiled, she meant the unveiling of the feminine, the divine feminine, which is the right brain, which is the receivership, which is we need a left and right brain. We need to activate consciousness, and then we need to receive it in remote viewing. So we need to be whole being creatures. I mean, there's the indigenous Native Americans saying that a bird can't fly with only one wing. We need to receive both parts and to be fully operational whole brain human beings. And the feminine is probably more important than even women suspect. I don't know, but it's a big part of what we've forgotten in our human history. It's been so left brain, and there's this other piece that maybe this is what the whole ET experience is evolving into. I don't know. It's so strange and odd.
Well, it's going to be interesting to go with Portal to Ascension to Egypt. I want to mention this to everyone because we're going to be putting the website up soon. And, we can't take all of you as much as we'd like to. We're going to take you on the live stream, though, with us, because I don't know, Alan, me, Neil, Geraldine is going to be there, the herd tax. I can only imagine that we're not even going to be in our body. And I've been doing this new art that's showing myself as an ancient Egyptian goddess.
Joan, your art is really fantastic. Do you want to
I know.
show us the picture you did of Neil too, because that's fantastic.
Oh, you want, but I'm going to show it.
Wait,
I'm
wait,
going to
wait,
show
did we
it.
officially wrap up this panel? But
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we can wrap up this panel. We're going to end the live stream, but guys, we just want you to know that we're going to be starting the live stream again on Portal to Ascension, New Realities. I know we're going to go on my channel, Joan of Angels, for this new presentation. And I'm not actually sure who else's channel we go on, but stay in tune. And those of you in the Zoom room,
Before
stay.
we go off live, why don't we share some of the Egyptian stuff? If people have to leave this discussion, that's fine.
Okay, what did you want me to show the art?
Yeah, while we're still live. I mean,
Okay, okay, guys, this is great. This is great. You know, what happened to me is that I stopped sharing my art for quite a long time. And
Let me
then
just jump in here real quick and just say something first in regards to the fact that we have Joan's event scheduled on our YouTube for 3:10. So if any of you are going over there, just let you know, we'll be, no, that's cool, it's cool. We'll be 5 minutes late. So we'll start in like 5 minutes for that. Go ahead, Joan.
Ah, you're amazing. So what happened, I'm looking for to open the folder for you right now. What happened is that I called in this ship like 4 months ago in June in Joshua Tree, and the ship sent all sorts of radiant energy, and then the Disclosure Fest was, I don't know, I got very activated, and suddenly I started channeling this art of extraterrestrials, the beings that I saw, and now I'm going into the Egyptian realms, okay? And it's been stunning, so I'm looking to find them for you. Because I really, since we're talking Egypt, I'll show Egypt.
Quick question. Alan, are you there?
Alan disappeared.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Are we officially done with the experiencer panel?
Yeah. Oh,
okay. So thank you so much, Sherry, Geraldine, Brendon, Kathleen. Appreciate and love you all so much. And yeah, feel free to stick around if you want to attend, any of this, or if you have to go, that's fine too. But just want to let you know I appreciate you all so much. And so what I'm thinking, Joan, is since you are going on, we might as well cancel this and start the next one because it's you anyway.
Well, we might as well. Okay, we don't have to do anything else.